soon as Brody told me that this is what was going on, I rang Paul Morris because Paul was obviously instrumental, as Roland said, and I know that Paul was instrumental. I rang Paul and I said, you just killed the guy's career.
Oh no! He's in the fence! The man's in the fence! Unbelievable!
Everyone, welcome back. I'm up to episode 5 here of Apex Hunters United. My co-host for this one is away. Elliot is at Taylor Bend this weekend racing in the Trans Am, where our first guest here tonight is about to bail off to. First of all, I'll welcome the guests in. We've got founder of both Boost Mobile and Mobile X, Peter Adderton, in the house. Welcome to the show, mate.
Mate, thanks for having me.
And our other co-host is my co-driver this year. He's lucky enough to have me in car 87 with him to hopefully improve his rookie numbers at Bathurst. I saw 8th is his best result, but he's currently leading the Supercars Championship. So welcome in Will Brown.
No, thanks for having me.
It's a very, very cool opportunity to have you both in the same room. I know there's some stuff we're going to get to with the US and everything that's happening, but we managed to get you, Will, you had an appearance, I think, nearly next door.
Yeah, sure did. Made it pretty easy.
Yeah. For us, we were like, as soon as I'd been hassling you for a bit, as soon as I heard about the America stuff, I was like, I've got to get Will in the room and try and ask him about some stuff here. So we've flown up with all the kit. I've brought DJ Paul, producer today, up from Melbourne from One Night Media to help us run the show. But we might as well roll straight into it. I mean, firstly, Pete, obviously very vocal on socials and things, but I really want to get into first establishing why you're so passionate about supercars. I know that in a documentary we shot a couple of years ago with Richie Stanaway for Boost, you mentioned, that feeling of standing on top of the hill at Bathurst, just bringing back memories growing up. And I think that gives good context to why you are so passionate online. Yeah,
I mean, we sponsor a lot of sports, as you know, surf, soccer, motorsport, and I'm predominantly passionate about supercars. And you see that in, even Supercross, right? And we did IndyCar in America, and I've never really shown the same amount of passion that I have for supercars. And it really goes back to when I was a kid. Like, my dad sitting there on the couch, taking us up and watching the sport. And I absolutely love it. And I think if you look at it, a lot of times people, give me a hard time for being critical and criticizing. But unless you really love something, you're very rarely critical on it. You really just let it go, right? And so when you look at all the sports that we do sponsor, I kind of let them go. I like them, but I don't passionately love them. And so Supercars has a special spot in my heart. And that's probably one of the reasons why I'm extremely vocal. And I want to see it to be the biggest sport in Australia. I want to see that because I think it's got the potential to do that.
Yeah, and I think I don't necessarily always agree with everything you say, but I feel very similar in that when you are passionate about something, you're not happy when you see an injustice or, in terms of your sports success or where you think it could be. So you speak out. And unfortunately, it's often taken the wrong way. But I personally feel like, I wanted to do this to try and give more context to what I am saying or when I am vocal about it, why I believe this. But sometimes I feel like within supercars, there's not that same level of passion. And that's the one thing that probably frustrates me is, what I say can be taken out of context or taken personally, which it's never personal. I love supercars and I want to see it succeed and be sustainable so people like myself and Will can have opportunities, into the future, because it's tough to go race in Europe. It's hard to race in America. But I think that if we can build supercars up to be sustainable and, change the demographic, make the drivers more household names and do these sorts of things, then
it's not too hard to race in America when you got Pete on your side.
Well, I got to tell you, I love, and one of the reasons why, I'm an Australian, obviously, and went across and we built a multi-billion-dollar brand in America. I love seeing Australians come across and do well in the US, and if we can help them do that, we're all in, right? Anywhere around the globe.
So it's not just about having Mobile X and getting a benefit on that end of it. It's actually is still about supporting.
Yeah, of course, we're Australians. We should be helping each other out and making sure that each other go across. But I will say one of the reasons why I think I'm controversial is I think I've been living in a time warp. So I left. I'll be honest with you. I left Australia 20 years ago, and the Australia that I remember 20 years ago, half the stuff that I say now, it would have been said. And no one would have had a problem with it. I came back 20 years later like I was in a coma, and I started saying what I was saying 20 years ago, and suddenly I'm like controversial. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that Australia has made. It's extremely sensitive. It's become really sensitive. Now, I don't think supercar fans are. I think they're very vocal, and and I think one of the reasons why people either like me or hate me is because I say what I believe, right? And that doesn't happen today. There are so many conflicting, even with journalists and team owners and race, they have so many conflicts that they actually don't know who they are anymore, and they can't say who they are. So I'm going to blame the time warp that I literally left 20 years ago where we would say these things and everyone's like, yeah, you're right, mate. Yeah, good on you. And now I come back and they go, well, you can't say that. I'm like, well, that's not what I remember Australia to be.
Social media is one of those things that I got told once by a team owner, big guy in the US, most people probably assume who or guess who this was that told me at the time, but he said, if you ever have to think about it, it's not worth posting. And I don't want to live like that in a way. I think about it, and there are things that I've posted. I look back, think, what was I thinking?
Scott, quite often your first thought you have is actually the right thought, right? Because it's unfiltered.
Yeah.
And for me, I say it, right? Right. I just put it up there and I go, and then, you wake up in the morning because I'm in America and I'm going, yeah, maybe I could have probably said that a little bit different. But you can't pull it down, right? Otherwise, then you look weak.
Yeah, no. Exactly.
But I do like people who actually say the thing the first time because that's probably what they're really thinking.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it's just filtered and watered down. And at the end of it, it's not what you were actually originally thinking.
And we do have passionate fans. We see it on race weekends, don't we, Will? But it's not necessarily that they're not necessarily right that all of their opinions are right. But some of them, I read some of the comments and you do see some merit in what they're saying. So I think it's important that we do have the conversations. Because it's not, like I said, I don't agree with everything you've said, but I've agreed with a lot you've said. And that's why I want to have a conversation because somewhere, along the line, there'll be ideas that can help improve the sport. And it's not going to be all of them, but just some of them. And that's why you should have these conversations. But it hasn't been as much of an open door as I would like to Supercars, even for me personally. And I felt like if I can't have a conversation with anyone up there, there's no way in hell they're reading a Reddit forum about what maybe we could do different or what people are unhappy about at a Supercar event.
Yeah, look, I think the other difference with us is that it's not a business for us. I don't make money out of Supercars, right? So I'm not conflicted in any way, right? I don't own a team, as much as I've tried. We don't own the Supercars series. We're a sponsor, right? And so we put money into the sport. And there's very few people who put money in the sport that have a vocal approach. Now, I speak to a lot of the sponsors who aren't as vocal as I am, but have the exact same thoughts I have about the series, right? And so it's almost like I've become the poster child to go out there and spokesperson for a lot of the sponsors. So for those who think that it's just me saying this, I can tell you, I'm not going to name them because they haven't asked, they wouldn't want me to, but there are other sponsors who feel exactly the same way I feel, that they just want the sport to be better and bigger and faster. And it's not going in the right direction. And so what we're trying to do is maybe my shock jock approach, hopefully it shocks people into thinking about it.
Yeah.
They don't have to act on it, but hopefully they think about it. But again, it's not just me. There are other sponsors who feel the same way I do.
Yeah. And now before we go too far down that rabbit hole, because I feel like I do want to get back to all of this and see what we can do to improve Supercars within this 4 rooms before we leave tonight, make it perfect. But Will, amazing start this year. I saw some crazy stat of like 93% of the points you had scored going into Taupo, I think it was. So how's it been joining Red Bull Ampol Racing this year?
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy, to be honest. I guess last year was just like, when the transition and when I knew I was making that transition period, I was sort of, took a while for it to come around. And you move over to a new team. This is the first time I've ever moved to a new team since I've been in Supercars. And you're thinking, these guys have put a lot of faith in me. Am I going to do the job? There's always nerves no matter what team you're with. I used to think, if I get to Triple Eight one day, you'll roll up every weekend and think you're going to win. It's not the case. You know what I mean? Like, it's quite hard. But it's been a great start to the year, obviously.
Nerves would have almost been bigger, though, last year, wouldn't they? Like, now that you've hit your strides. Like, I remember I've been messaging AE and Andrew Edwards, your engineer, and J-Dub as well. And it's cool because now I feel like, okay, you've got through the, like, what's it going to be? How am I going to perform or how will I go against Brock or, big shoes to fill. Yep. So I imagine there must have been a point last year where you were probably shitting yourself and then you've gone out and actually delivered. And now it's like, okay, like you've proven what you can do in a car and you can just go and execute now.
Yeah, I think it's been good to prove to a few people in the first couple of rounds this year what I can do. I had a tough end to last year and there was a bit of media out there and joining Triple Eight, was I the right choice at the time? And, and I think going out this year.
You were still leading the championship at the time when they signed you.
I questioned it, right?
Yeah, I think Pete questioned it. Actually, now he's sponsoring me. I think he said put Richie in. But no, I'm only joking. But
I was going to give Pete shit. I reckon he's the most talented person at riding a push bike backwards.
Who's that?
You.
Yeah, no, I am. They misunderstood what I said about Will. I basically said that because he'd done the Bathurst thing that I felt that he'd earned it. But there's no doubt that Will has shown this year that he deserves to be in that seat. And so I'll eat humble pie right now. It didn't taste good.
Yeah.
And I rarely eat it, but I'll eat it now.
Well, that does bring me to it, the US. So obviously, in the 4 walls together here today for a good reason. Amazing opportunity. Tell everyone what it is you're actually getting to go and do in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so I'm going to race Sonoma in NASCAR, the Cup Series, which is massive. Sort of the way it all came about was end of last year, Brody couldn't go and do the COTA. I think it was Worldwide Sports or not Worldwide Sports. I got that wrong. it's WOS over there or something, a category over there that they race. They race 3 drivers and they build the car up. So they wanted to get a bit of training with Kyle and Austin on road courses. So it was at Coda. It was 2 8-hour races, and I got the call. I'd finished with Erebus obviously for the year, and I got the call, hey, will you come over and race with Richard Childress at this event? And Barry and all the guys were over there, and I was like, okay, right, I'll come and do it. I'll fill in. And I thought it was a pretty cool opportunity that Richard thought of me. I'd only just seen him at Adelaide the week before, so I headed over there, had a great race. We should have won, but bit of stuff at the end. We ended up coming second, and I spoke with Richard while I was over there and said, is there ever the chance of coming over and doing a race like Brody did? And he said potentially. And then I just thought I had a good enough start to this year to reach out and make, ask the question. If I was coming 6th in the championship, I would have been, I don't know if I'll ask the question, but
so
had a good enough start.
Reached out first.
Yeah, so I reached out.
Was this after the Brody announcement stuff's happened, and then did you go, there might be a shot here?
Yeah, all the stuff with Brody was going down and that, but not with Pete and Brody yet and that stuff. So I thought, I'll reach out. And it took a few weeks for him to come back to me and be like, we've been watching what you've been doing over there. And they really follow Supercars, which is cool. I didn't think, and I don't know if they did years ago follow Supercars, but with Shane going over there, they're now taking a keen interest in it. So, Richard and the guys over there were like, we've been seeing what you're doing. We'd be keen to have you. In this period when I'm trying to work out how to get the funding together, all the stuff's come out and Pete's gone, no, I'm not sponsoring anyone.
I'm never sponsoring a driver.
And I'm like, shit, what am I going to do here? So I'm like thinking it up in my head, and sitting at home for like 3 days. I was like, how do I sell this to Pete? Like, what do I do here? Because, Pete's funded and helped support so many Aussies going over there. And, that's been a great
even with
thing.
the Brody stuff, you're probably thinking to yourself too, like, the budget's there. They were doing it. So it's just like, can I get Pete to do a backflip here and back me now instead of the other guy?
There was 100 different things, to be honest. I'm mates with Brody. I'm like, I don't want to screw Brody over in this situation either. And I want to also better my... I'm trying to work it all out.
Someone's asked me this before, though. I don't think there'd be many of us that wouldn't push someone off,
and I don't think anyone...
last lap of Bathurst, regardless of how great mates we are.
That's right.
So shot at Nascar.
I've already thought if Cam's leading and I'm second, I'm going to take him. But
I'd be upset if you don't. I'd be upset if you don't.
But it was an interesting one. And then, to be honest, I thought, and at the time, is that it's a bit of an injustice to the sport if, due to what has happened, that Pete leaves the sport. He's done a lot for young guys and supported us and been great for the category. Whether you love him or not, I think a lot of the stuff, I don't agree with everything either, but I think some of it has to be said and some of it's just funny. I just enjoy reading it, to be honest.
I want you guys to know, I actually don't agree with everything I say either.
That's it.
You said this to me once.
I actually don't. Like,
I messaged you and said, what the fuck? I don't agree. What the hell were you thinking there? And you go, mate, don't take it so serious. No. I don't believe half the shit I say.
No, a lot of the stuff I do, which is quite funny, is I'll drop a bomb, right? And my wife and kids have stopped reading my posts now. They're like, Dad, you're crazy. You're an idiot. So we're not going to read it anymore. In fact, I think one of my daughters tried to unfollow me. But you drop it in there because at the end of the day, you want to wake people up out of their coma, right? And,
it's 3 weeks between events too. We've got to keep the sport relevant.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing, which is because, but it was funny because Will did call me, and I had made that, I'm not doing this. That's it. And obviously the thing had blown up with Brody, and it was also timely because I think Paul Morris had just come out and said, well, I've got intel on that. Brody's not going to do NASCAR next year. And I'm like, and I wrote back, my post was like, well, coincidentally, we aren't either sponsoring you. So here's a guy who's got got to drive and doesn't have any money. So he decided he's not going to do it. So Will called me, and I will say this, when I was at Bathurst for the first Bathurst event, I think you were on pole, and the hat controversy came up. A lot of people think that it doesn't play on a sponsor's mind, right? And the fact that he put the hat on, he said, get over here, put the hat on. And to me, they're sponsored by another, by Vodafone. I have no problem, it's Vodafone, Optus, Telstra, all competitors. And for me, I just want the best product for the consumer. So if Vodafone has the best product, the cheapest product for the consumer, then the consumer should buy that, right? I'm not sitting back here going, you all have to buy a Boost. We hope we can deliver on that, right? So the fact that he put the hat on played a huge part. Those little things to sponsors like me played a huge part. And so when I was sitting back, I was talking to my wife, because it was late at night, and I was like, it's my pride or my ego, right? My ego is I can show these guys, that didn't want to back us, that ripped our stickers off their helmets, that I'm going to go do this. But then there was also the pride of I said I'm not going to do this, right? And so when Will rang me, I said, you know what? I'm not sponsoring Richard Childress Racing, right? I'm sponsoring and supporting Will.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of in my own mind went, you know what? He's coming across here. He's having a go. He's always been good to us. Will has always been good to us as a Boost ambassador. You know, he obviously when we sponsored his car, he was always brilliant. I'm like, you know, I owe it to him.
And you personally made the phone call.
Yeah,
I think that's always really important because some guys, I know that I've never had a manager and I don't think that having someone, especially with someone like yourself, Pete, I imagine if a manager rang you up, it'd be a very quick phone call.
Yeah, no, Dave Ellis, every time Dave rings, it's a quick phone call.
It has to be a personal level. Like
it's
when you're investing in a driver as well, the return on investment's not always as much as it is a personal investment. And that's why I think it is important a driver will, you know, balls up and call the sponsors himself and build that relationship.
Yeah, and that's pretty much how it all came about, to be honest. I called Pete because I was like, I need the big fish, you know what I mean? So you think about it from that point of view. And, I was able to have a great chat with you and we were able to pretty much work something out over the phone, which is great with people like Pete and Earl from Shaw & Partners who's supporting me as well. I had a very short time frame to get this sorted. Like we talked, 3-4 weeks ago?
Yeah.
So
I remember you saying at Phillip Island, you're like, man, there might be a chance of this.
Yeah.
Like, this is how much I need to raise, and this is the deadline.
That's right. So
luckily you're a car salesman.
That's right.
You're good on the phone.
And that's it. And, you know, just to get the opportunity, like Richard Childress is supporting the program as well and funding part of it. So just to get the opportunity was great, but then you had to also raise some cash. So, I spoke with Pete pretty much straight there and then we were able to get something across the line. And then I spoke with Earl Evans and one of my other sponsors, Sean Dyson and Steve Blackmore, and came up with pretty much enough that I went, okay, if worse comes to worse, I could fund the rest. But then we got other sponsors on board.
I think it's great that you did. Yeah, I've been taking the piss doing the backflip, but I think it does just show, though, the passion and why you want, like, to help Will go do it is, it's not, I can almost guarantee it's probably not going to return on its investment financially necessarily, so there's definitely a personal level there, and I think that we need people like yourself that are passionate. Of course you're going to say shit you probably will even regret yourself, or like you said, you're just stirring the pot, but you know, to give Will an opportunity to go over there, I can't wait to see it. Got Cam as well doing it, which is unreal. I'm very envious, but yeah, I think it's a really cool thing, and kudos to you for manning up and making the phone call. I think it's good.
No, and it was the personal call that Will put into us. But he's right about Richard Childress. I mean, Richard has been a very big supporter of Australians coming across there. So I think that's important to point out.
For a long time, or do you think people like probably Marcus was the first to put us on the map, I think, and then Shane, what he did at Chicago. Now everyone's looking at us as road courses. I mean, we actually had Tom Moore, your engineer from last year, tell us that last year when you went on the sim, Brody was 2.5 seconds quicker than Kyle Busch on the sim within 10 laps. And they were like, holy shit. And that track happened to be Sonoma.
Yep.
So you must be looking forward to going to that track now, knowing that.
Yeah. No, I'm pumped. Like the hardest thing for me, I went over there. So I got pretty much the deal done and I got Pete and these guys locked away. And then I went, how's this going to work logistically with how many races I'm doing? So I worked out, I had like 6 days free. So I booked a flight the next day and flew out the next day. I was like, okay, I'm going over there.
Which is why we've got you for an hour tonight in Sydney.
Yeah.
So that's it.
I flew straight out and I went over there and I got to do the sim and that. And I'm not sure from times because I was sort of the test dummy for this year because they're practicing for all of their other weekends right there. Now they're not interested in Sonoma just yet. So I'm not sure as in times, but the simulator and all that over there is epic. And I'm not sure, going back to the Richard Childress thing, like he's been great to the Aussies and I'm not sure why. Like, you know what I mean? I met him when he's out here. He's an awesome guy, like, you know, just great to deal with. And I think it's just got along with him.
But I also think the notoriety of having Australians come across. I mean, if you're a team owner, it would be no different if Kyle Busch came out here, right? You would suddenly bring up the profile of Supercars. So I think that he likes that. He's a marketer as well.
Yeah.
It did actually work out perfectly for us because we're launching at Mobile X in Walmart a Motorola handset.
Oh, perfect.
On that weekend, right? The June 7th, 8th weekend that was. So we reached out to Motorola and Walmart and said, hey, can we put this together? Yeah. So, you know, it did work out really well for us.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions because expectations from the weekend are going to be polar opposites for the two of you. Of course, you've got the interest in Will's outcome as well, but I'll ask you first then, what is your expectation out of that then? Obviously now being able to launch that product, tying in with there, that's probably
expectation is, you know, I've always said about brands, right? That if you look at brands like Red Bull and you look at brands like Monster, you put 50% of it into brand and then you put 50% into value. And what value is basically the offers, right? Always pushing offers, you know, telling people about your pricing. And I think successful brands put it into the 50% of brand, which is just about letting people feel good about wearing and feeling good about the brand. So for us, it's just another, we haven't announced this yet, but we're going to do the X Games in summer, right? So we're actually going to be the official telco for the X Games in summer in Ventura. And so these are the things that I built the Boost brand on, right?
Yeah.
And the foundation of the Boost and the difference between us and everybody else, right? I think social media wise, Boost Australia has, way more than Telstra and Vodafone when it comes to social media. And if you look at our social media, we don't put up offers, right? We put up, we want you to feel part of the brand.
It's like that Red Bull model as well. They do all the sport and
absolutely
post a can.
And so that's why we're being successful. That's why we got into 4,500 stores in Walmart, which was a massive feat. We got in there within 3 months. For anyone who knows anything about Walmart, to get in there within 3 months is unheard of, ever, right? They've never done it before in their life. They move things to us. So we're true to the brand. And I think when, Will said he's going to come across, it's a great news story because the media will cover him. I was there when Brody ran Indy. And the media covered him. They love the fact that you had Australians there. So we're going to get notoriety just because Will there is
even
there.
In supercars, like I don't even. There'll be opportunities that we could be doing that raise the profile of our sport, and that's getting people in, like someone from Nascar to come over here. I think it'd be a much tougher transition for those guys to come over here, just because we only race on road courses. But I think that these one-off things are good for the sport. That's why they're going to be getting around it as well. And when you go over there at a road course with a chance of, you're not going to make a fool of yourself. You will run towards the front is my expectation. Like I really think you will. So for the sport, it's nothing but positives, I think.
Well, I said to him, mate, look, when we went over with Brody, I just said to Brody, let's just have some fun. I mean, let's be honest, right? Whether you come last or whether you come second or third or fourth, doesn't really matter, right? Most of the value is built up before we get to the race, right? And
still got to respect the guys doing it. You're not going to go there expecting the night before. So go have fun. Don't go in with too many expectations, even though I'm sure you do have some.
Well, but I think that's one of the things that people don't realise that Shane actually did is he did put a huge amount of expectations on Australians going across there. It's like, they'll be at the front.
Yeah, everyone.
And I'm sitting back going, well, the Americans aren't useless.
Well, then he went to Indy and ran 10th.
Yeah,
so it's tough.
But I was there, right? So I was there at the Indy race, and Brody had never been on this circuit, right? And so he gets out there and he'd done a lot of the sim racing, and he was up there, very, very quickly, and he was on a really I think he only had 3.
When he crashed,
we had 3 laps because the throttle was stuck. The throttle was broken, right? So he got stuck out there, and so he was 11th, right? After 3, he had 3 laps to get to 11th, right? And so of course, the Australians do really, really well, but. They do well because they're talented, right? Not just because the Americans are slow. Drivers. But it seems to be that Australians are, we're really good at the road course. No, the Americans are good at the road courses as well. Yeah. Australians just are really talented at it. So I don't want to downplay the NASCAR guys, and I also don't want to upplay the Australians. But at the end of the day, they've got the level and talent to go out there and do that. But I said to Will, it's about having fun, mate. Like I'm not expecting him to sit on the pole position, right? I'm expecting him to have a blast and enjoy it. And we can go back and do it again.
Oh, there we go. So it's not one. Yeah, there we go.
Wait and see.
We've just got all excited. What are your expectations?
Well, I'll put some expectations on myself because I've seen the prize money over there. So
do you get to keep the prize money, or do you have to split that with Pete?
No, that's all his. You know what's funny? You know what's funny? Oh. When Australians come across, Americans put up massive prize money.
Oh yeah,
and they come back and here prize pool too.
Yeah, and we up.
Did you? Yeah.
$4.5 million and $400,000 bonus for winning it back to back or something.
No, it's real money.
Yeah,
it's real money, and that's why I think one of the things that Supercars doesn't do here. They pat themselves on the back, but I'm like, man, you go across there and you can get real money, like real prize money.
It's a hard one because I think, like you said, Shane went over there and won and put Australia on the map with that. But my expectations are, I've looked at what, you got to look at what Shane's done since then at the road courses with Indy and also Coda and that sort of stuff, and he's running in the 10. So, it might be high expectations, but I think Brody was going to run in the 10 when he was there and most of it. So I think you can't go there and go, I don't have expectations. We do, and I think running in the 10 would be a good day, and anything better with that would be a great day. So, it's going to be interesting. Sonoma, they know the track very well, and with the repaving, best thing for me, instead of getting 20 minutes practice, we've got 50 due to the repaving. They've extended the practice
this year. Which is way better.
Is that the only testing you're going to get?
Yes, that's the only testing.
And what about simulator prior to that?
Get simulator, so I'll get the end of, I guess those guys are doing so many simulator sessions. Sometimes Kyle Busch goes, no, I'm going to spend time with my family or something like that. So I'm filling in for a few of their sessions, and then also get a couple, one more from there. But, for myself, I feel like that extra 30 minutes, the NASCAR guys are driving these cars all the time. Will
Yeah.
I find more in that 30 minutes than they will? I would assume so usually. So I just think for me, having 50 minutes there will be a bonus.
I think the thing that surprised me when I went to my first NASCAR compared to Supercars here is the guy that changed the tyres.
Oh,
These are NFL.
man.
These guys are
The
massive.
guy that
Yeah.
jacks it. I remember trying to jack the car at Penske when I went over.
Yeah.
The thing's heavy. They just like,
Oh no, I was.
Linebackers
And you
or whatever
see them,
they are
you
over
just
there.
see them up and down, and then you come over here to Australia, you see these guys like dragging the wheels out. These guys are just whacking them on.
we almost need them like low center of gravity. Little guys are the best little pocket rockets in our category, I think.
yeah.
But when I went over there, I remember seeing the guy that jacked the car was an absolute beast. And that was like, they have a pit stop crew.
Yeah.
That's their
Oh,
job.
yeah.
They're training. They had a full rehab center in there at Penske. It was just like they train as
But
much
the way
as
they
drivers.
treat sponsors, I got to tell you, is next level. So
Yeah.
when we were there at IndyCar, they have all the drivers come in, they bring all the sponsors, and the head of NASCAR thanks us, right? Gets up and says, I want to thank the guys from Mobile X and Peter for coming along in front of all the drivers, right? In front of all the teams, and they all cheer, right? Thanks for coming in.
Wow.
And then when you go to the actual event, you're right there at the pits. Right here, they put a red line and no one can come in, stay back, it's dangerous. NASCAR, you're like right there. And you're sitting up either in the tent or you can just walk straight up when the cars come into the pit. The level of interaction with a sponsor and fans is next level. And this is one of the things that I think Supercars could learn. I was the sponsor of the thing and I'm sitting there. I watched the car come in and the jack guys, and they're not like, get out of my way,
Yeah.
They're nice. Like, hey, mate, you're okay. Like, well, you're changing a tire.
That was like when I went over and went into RCR last a couple of weeks ago. Far out, like I got to drive the pit stop car and all that, and the guys are amazing, but their facilities are next level. Like went upstairs to the gym. The gym's a commercial grade gym. Like it's like 3 times a Snap Fitness here. They've got massage people, physio people, and just looking at those guys, they train twice a day in the gym. On top of that, so it was pretty cool just seeing the facilities over there at the NASCAR teams, but also. I think what shocks most people, RCR has 400 staff right now, and that's a small NASCAR
That blew me
team.
away with Cam telling me about the trucks.
Yeah.
Oh, they're lined up.
But even the trucks, I think it was at 300 employees or something like that for
Yeah.
the truck series. I couldn't
It's
believe
crazy.
it. I'm like, that's not even... the thing he did say, though, is people are running the truck series almost like NASCAR teams. They're not like a tier 3 or anything, even though they are kind of a stepping stone, because like people like Kyle will come back and race truck series. That is actually almost a standalone championship. But to have 300 employees running a truck series when you're calling it effectively a tier 3, it's insane.
I took some of the NRL guys, the Manly guys, to the Vegas event recently with Richard, and they just couldn't believe it. Like they're just the level of interaction, professionalism, the drivers, how they. I mean, it's just you feel part of the experience, right? And I think that's one of the things where there's not this gap, and you'll see it when you're there, right? I'll be standing here and you'll be in the car there, right? It doesn't happen in Supercars, right? The marshals get back in the pits, you don't pass the line, and the NASCAR guys are like, get down here.
I love it though when you are a fan, or I haven't been a sponsor, I'm not that rich, but when you are a fan or a sponsor and you can get that close, it's great. But then there's also, you don't want to become so familiar with the drivers that star power's gone. I don't know that that's the right thing either.
I think we've got good accessibility for the fans to us, but I think you're talking more sponsors. You're sponsoring the event.
It is, but even when you'll notice this when they walk out, right? So they do the briefing, the NASCAR drivers briefing, and then they walk out. They walk out amongst all the fans to their cars, right? And so there's a line of all these fans, and it was interesting because when I was in IndyCar, Shane had so many people calling out for him, and he would go over, right? And he was signing, and I was actually walking behind him. And they literally all walk out and all the fans can see them and they're walking to their cars. It's not the interaction that I'm talking about where you're just hanging out with Will.
Yeah.
As a fan, right? Hey, Will.
It's experiences they're getting.
Exactly. And it's the way they bring the drivers through. It's almost like a driver's parade in front of the fans to go to their cars.
Yeah.
Right? Where now you get in your car from the pits, you drive around and then you get to the grid and there's some special people that can get to the grid.
Yeah.
These allow everybody in the center. So I just felt that was a pretty powerful thing. But I will say this, that the drivers here are vanilla. Like, honest to God, they are vanilla. And everyone...
You say that, though, when coming back to Australia, you said that it felt like you're in a time warp.
Yep.
And now you're getting silent. You get hate for being vocal.
Yep.
But
I actually like that.
But for you to say that you've come back and you've noticed that means that it's not like that in the States. So is that why we're seeing drivers that are vanilla? Because I know personally I was afraid to do this podcast. I spoke to Shane about it last year. He wouldn't do it. I wanted to, but I was afraid to do it because every time I said something, someone thought I was trying to do it for my own gain. And I thought the best opportunity now is because I'm co-driving with Will, I can have these conversations and there's no personal gain there. If anything, I'm just trying to, I'm a fan watching on race weekend, so I can give my perspective on what it was like on TV. But I do feel like here in Australia, the fans can be quite critical of whether it's a tall poppy thing, but sometimes we do get some hate. So I don't know that it 100% lies with the drivers why they're not speaking out, because you speak out, you get beat up. And you see characters now like Chaz and those guys where they're personalities, but they're always positive personalities. We rarely see them speak out or be controversial, and that's what I think we're missing.
Yeah, because there's no line. There's this, no social hate, right? There's this line that someone's put in, and what may be hateful in your mind probably isn't hateful to me, right? Mm. But I'm supposed to feel bad for you.
It's like what you find offensive.
Yeah, exactly. So you're offended,
sorry,
so I should be offended with you. And I'm like, but I'm not. I don't think. And so a lot of the fans, if you come on my Facebook, you'll see I try to respond back to them. Yep. And a lot of them are in some people's minds are hateful, but I don't see it that way. I actually find it quite funny and quite amusing. Now, Australians have a unique approach to life, right? And we've got to remember that, right? Again, the Australians that I knew 20 years ago have a unique approach, and that is in your face. And it's one of the reasons, by the way, why we've done so well in America, right? Americans basically, they're the smiling assassins, right? Yeah. Australians come in, they tell you how it is, right? Whether you like it or not, I don't really care, but they tell you how it is. You come back here and it's almost like this movement, this woke movement where you've got this fluid, like, oh, that upset me, right? And I'm like, well, okay, but it didn't upset everybody. It might have upset you. Yeah, and the minority,
the meaning of it.
The minority now has the majority control. And for me, that's the problem with supercars. And I want to see the drivers get out there. I mean, I know a lot of these drivers personally, right? And the personalities that I see, you don't see.
Yeah.
Right? And they are restricted, right? And they are reserved in how they approach things because a sponsor might be upset with what you say. And I'm like, for boost, I'm like, say whatever you like.
Typically, when we have done things like live streams during COVID, like for me, I did that a lot where we did some races online with Shane and stuff, and that was where Apex Hunters United started. But I was surprised. I've always been not reserved, but I have bit my tongue publicly. I'm the type of person that I am a bit polarizing. I do know that there's a reputation of sometimes being hard to work with because I will say the most uncomfortable thing if I feel like it needs to be said. If I'm in a boardroom or if I'm in a debrief after a race and I feel like something needs to be said, I'm going to say it. But I felt like in COVID, when we started to just be ourselves online, I was blown away the fans' reaction, like because you could communicate directly with them through Twitch and live streaming, and they were actually supportive of us being ourselves. Like Shane started to open up. I think we left it too long after COVID, and we started to go back into our hole a little bit, into our shell. But during COVID, I was actually surprised how much the fans did enjoy seeing us drinking online, being ourselves, saying some dumb shit, doing some dumb things, and showing a personality.
I agree with Pete. I think that we have gotten soft in a way. You're worried. It's not supercars silencing us, or anything like that. They don't mind at all. It's all the drivers are worried about what the fans are going to say. You get one or two bad comments and you're going, oh, is a sponsor going to be happy with what I said there, or is this going to be right? So, I think that I was thinking about this recently, and I think as a driver, I'm quite a happy person. I want to make sure that everyone enjoys it and all that sort of stuff. But are we getting soft that, if we get a couple of bad comments or say something that the minority will be unhappy about, we don't say it. So do we need to harden up as drivers and go, I'm going to say that, and even though it's going to be the minority, they make a lot of noise, they comment a lot, just not care about it.
And you really need the support though, because that conversation said about the US team owner, I got threatened to be fired that day. Like the phone call was pretty fucking hard. Like I had to talk my way back into actually racing the next weekend because of something I posted online, right? And it was... I was 21 or whatever, 22. And, I thought it was funny. I was being myself and posted something. And that was the first time, I think it was like nearly 8 months till I posted again. I was like terrified of, so you actually need the support of someone like Pete though, who's a brand that wants you to be yourself. But it's not always like that. And I think Formula One's lucky now because they're bigger than the brands almost. Like Formula One's want to be involved with that. Whereas the commercial landscape of supercars probably isn't as strong.
But the irony is, and I love this, when you come back to Australia, you just drive down the road, right? You cut somebody off, right? That person will scream as if if they had a chance, they'd try to kill you, right? Yeah. And I'm sitting there, and so when I look at social media, it's no different, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like you've cut them off, you've upset them, and now they're going to scream at you. We don't go back and look at the second that person says it, we drive off and forget about it.
Yeah.
But somehow, because it's a comment on social media, it stays there, right? And then other people start to add in. So it would be basically like I cut off somebody and then 8 cars behind start yelling at me, right? And so this mentality of we've been used to it, right? And so the social media platform does allow it to expand. But again, I don't care what people say. And you know why I don't care? Because at the end of the day, I want them to come out. And the frustrating thing for me is that the word hate, this social hate thing, and I give Chaz a hard time about it because I know he's got the no social hate. He actually picked me up on it the other day. But my point is, what is hate? Is if I disagree with you and I call you an idiot and I think you're stupid, is that really hate? No. Yeah. It's not, right? If you're physically violent to somebody, if you threaten somebody with physical violence or you threaten to hurt them, but if you just say something like, I think you're a dickhead or you're a fucking idiot, that's not hate. 9 times out of 10, they might be right.
I said, I actually, because the no social hate thing, like I appreciate what he's trying to do there, but I don't think it's an achievable goal at all. But
in fact, I think it waters it down. I think it waters down the real hate because people throw that at me all the time, right? They're like, no social hate. And I'm going, that's not hate, mate. So they throw it at you. And I say, all you're doing is you're watering it down for the people who truly are getting hate, right? And I said, that's what you need to watch because when you draw a line down the middle, right, you say that's what's acceptable and that's not acceptable, everybody has a different line.
I think on social media, though, it's good to encourage those that have something positive to say it because often people only say the negative and it's usually the minority still. But we don't hear the positive because if someone's got something nice, they don't typically say it. Like they don't. Yeah. So I would say, I said this in the last podcast, I think it was, that I would just encourage people to say a positive thing if they've got something to say and let the negative still be there because you're never going to stop it.
Can I hold you up on that one?
I'm wrong there.
All right. I'll tell you why. Have you ever gone onto a Yelp review or these reviews?
Yeah.
People who are positive don't normally say they're positive because they're happy.
True.
People that go on these things are the people that are negative, right? And so when you go into a forum,
a good argument in a comment section is always good. When you've got someone debating,
a good debate,
going,
that's fine.
I love that.
But
that's what I'm saying.
Know that most people
just
come on because they're angry.
Yeah.
They're not coming on because they're happy. And so this whole concept of like, I read the Yelp reviews, right? And you sit back and people are like, shit, there was this, there was that. And I'm like, people don't go on. Like I go to restaurants, you guys go to restaurants, you go to places. You're always happy. The only time you get online, if you're on an airline, is when you've had a shit experience.
That is
just
true.
Remember that the forum and the platform is designed for people to vent negative.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's all I say is if you want positive, I'd suggest you go to the Himalayas. Hang out with the monks.
So if Pete's saying something negative, we know what his mood's like. Don't call him and ask him for money.
Yeah.
If he's on social media, don't call him and ask him
by the way, my anger lasts for about 30 seconds. I can't, even if I have a fight with somebody and I have a disagreement
I'm
with
exactly
them,
the same.
2 minutes later,
you leave that room. And
2 minutes later, and again, I've had obviously the battles with Brody, but if Brody rang me tomorrow, I'd probably go, okay, Brady, what's going on? Because I do want
to be honest, that was probably the biggest thing going back in my career with this social stuff and everything was the Frosty thing. Over at New Zealand.
Yeah.
We had a crash. I got into him a bit. There was no, apart from what happened with Barry and they're unhappy, but we had words. I got quite angry, but I thought it was good showing a bit of passion, that Frosty came in and I think it was only a week later I saw him. I'm like, I don't really care, mate. Like it was just that thing. But then I got it roasted for getting angry at him for punting me off at 250k an hour, which I think should be allowed. When I think back now, I'd probably go, I'm not going to get up him because I just got torched for it all online.
Make your own arrangements.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Like I probably did make my own arrangements, but at the end of the day, I think there needs to be more stuff of like what happened there
100%.
To make a bit of controversy for it to hit media and all of that sort of stuff. But now, because of what happened then and the comments and everything, someone takes me out, I just go, whatever.
Even what Barry did though, you got to tune up for pushing Frosty. If someone walks in your house, you knock them out. I'm like, you walk into someone else's garage knowing that you got mechanics around and everyone's going to be on their driver's side. So just go in knowing that you might get a shove or a punch, and that's on you.
Again, you just got to remember that the environment that you're playing in, the audience that you're talking to, people who go to a comedy show, right?
Yeah.
They go there to laugh, right?
Yep.
If you're going to go there and you're going to get offended, right? If you go there with a sensitive approach to life, you're going to get offended. The audience that we have in Supercars that goes online is that audience, right? And so if you don't want to play in there, delete social media and get out. But again, you can't take it personal, right? And if you're as a sponsor, you can't take it personal, right? I would rather him say something, right? And have all these people come in and basically disagree with him and argue and call him this and call him that. You know why? Because they're talking to him.
Yeah.
As opposed to, and this is the part where I talk about the vanilla approach, right? Most of those drivers up and down pit lane today, you don't know who they are.
No.
You just do not. And I know Supercars trying with these videos that they're now running where they basically run, here's a driver and this is what they're all about. But that's boring. It's like watching a doco, right? On a person you're not interested in. I'm more interested in what they think, what they feel, right? They've got to be angry, right? You're a race car driver, for God's sake.
Well, you've worked with me enough when you were sponsoring Walker Tour. You've seen me blow my top.
Yeah, I've seen you when I used to walk back to row 17 because Ryan wouldn't give you a car that would work. I go all the way back there to see you and James.
You were first to the podium at Melbourne Grand Prix, though.
And I was like, and I'd say to Ryan, what the fuck is going on here, Ryan? We're a sponsor. We want to be close to the front of the grid. And I remember you and James, you were fucking angry. You're like, this is shit. We should... But we never saw that, right? We never saw how you felt because it's like the team wouldn't let you basically air the fact that you were fucking pissed off. But let's face it, if you're 17th and 18th in a car, right, and you don't say anything, everybody knows what you're thinking.
Well, half the time, I said this to Frosty walking to a signing session last year. I was actually battling with the fact of just bullshitting all the time when you go upstairs. You go to the corporate suite and we were having a really hard time. We'd both ran out of fuel at Bathurst. It was an absolute disaster. Frosty had a contractor engineering his car at this point. It was going bad. And I said, I'm finding it hard to just go up and be positive all the time. Like I was genuinely having a battle with I feel like a compulsive liar at this point. And I didn't want, and I started to just from Gold Coast on, I was as honest as I could be in the corporate box. I stopped and it was like, it doesn't go down that well, but then I think it's respected as well because people feel your pain and it was getting to the point where it was fucking hard. Like I didn't want to go to a racetrack anymore. And so you have a bad weekend, you rock up to the corporate suite and to polish that turd, it's not good. And I didn't feel right about it anymore. And I think that I've got to that point in my career where I think people do respect us being honest about it because they can appreciate the fight. We're in it for the highs and they are few and far between, even though yours are quite regular at the moment. But I think it is important to vent it and let it out because I definitely felt a lot better about it. And I was surprised I didn't get really any heat back. The owner didn't like it so much, but the sponsors actually were coming up and having good conversations. We were having proper conversations.
This may be controversial, but it seems to be acceptable to cry as a driver for disappointment.
Yep.
But it's not acceptable to be angry because of disappointment. And to me, that's a big issue, right? That, poor driver, he didn't get one and he's tearing up in the background and everyone's like, and I'm like, that's acceptable. Now, 20 years ago, that wasn't acceptable. And I'm okay with it, right? If you want to show an emotion, I don't care whether it's a tear or anger, but be allowed to show both emotions, not just the one that makes everybody feel really, really good and makes them, cuddle their blanket.
Yeah.
I want to hear the driver that isn't happy, right? And is angry about what happened and explodes, right? And then don't apologize afterwards because I'm not looking for an apology. The fans aren't looking for an apology.
Like a driver should never have to apologize for
ever
on the radio.
Never, ever apologize. I did it. I said it. Done, right? I did it at the heat of the moment. I'm moving on. Let's all move on. And then what they do is they just water it down because everyone's like, you got to go out and apologize for that. And I'm like, well, why? It's what I felt at the time, right? And again, I think that's the things that you really need to drive. But just look at the drivers now. And I'm sure they've got great personalities.
They do.
Will and Brody.
All of them, yeah.
All of them have, but you just don't see it.
Yeah, for sure. The chat about socials and everything is one I've enjoyed because it's been something for 10 years. It's kind of evolved and changed. But I do want to get on to, before we run out of time here, with Will about Triple Eight and the comparison between Erebus, because something I said on one of our very first pods was comparing teams, and I've done one day at Triple Eight now, and it's been 10 years since I was there, but it hasn't gone backwards in any way, shape or form. It's 100% moved forward. And I was very impressed with the procedures and the amount that they're able to achieve on a test day. And I was blown away. And it wasn't so much about the car speed because there's been a lot of fast cars on a weekend, or last year you had a fast car. But for me, it's being able to turn up every year and build on that means it's not just about the fast car. And one of the things I hate the most is when someone says, doesn't make the car go faster. Because usually they're talking about a very isolated thing about making the car's performance quicker. But they forget that what makes the car go faster is a happy sponsor and a driver that's in a good mood and a crew that's well-fed and well-trained and all these 1%ers that go on so that you can turn up in 2024 and not have what happened last year and turn up where they were, and obviously now you've gone to Red Bull. But what are some of the first impressions you've seen here that have blown you over Triple Eight?
To be honest, it's procedures, like you said, and personnel. That's the two biggest things that make Triple Eight or Red Bull Impel Racing as good as they are. For us last year, if you're going to say compare them, we were excited to have fast cars. Like that was it. You rolled up every weekend. You're like, I want to win a race. I'm going to win a race this weekend. If you won one and came eighth in the next, that was a good weekend. But moving across to Triple Eight, they've had fast cars for 20 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So from there, they're going, how do we not lose this weekend? We know we're going to have a fast car. We're going to make sure we have a fast car, but how do we get all the procedures right on top of that? And that's been the biggest thing for me. Like, you know, the meetings, the pre-briefs, the debriefs, everything that we do to prepare for that weekend to make sure we don't make a mistake. And they give you what you need to you know, to win pretty much. Yeah. Like for me this year, I've really felt like I have the people around me, but also everything there to make sure I'm at my best and that I can win. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I think that, you know, they are, at the end of the day, it was like when Penske come in, money allows you to do better at the end of the day. And Triple Eight really utilises their sponsorship and does a really good job with the funding that they get to stay ahead of the game. And I think there's not exactly one thing I can put on it moving in there, but everyone knows how they operate. And it's been cool to be a part of that and just understand it.
So we sponsored a lot of teams, right? We sponsored WAU, we sponsored Tickford, we sponsored Erebus. Probably a few others when we were in there. And the one thing I noticed about Triple Eight is that 78% of the teams turn up and a top 10 is an acceptable target to achieve, right? And I hear that from the teams. Triple Eight turns up and we're first or we're last, right? And I would love, and you know, obviously wanted a team, and that would be our approach, but we need like 5 or 6 Red Bull teams there. We need 5 or 6 Triple Eight teams at the same level and the same standard. And I know they say the money's not, the money is there. Right? Yeah. But it's not there when you turn up and, hey, we've got a top 10, you know, we've got bag of points. Bag of points, who cares about the bag of points, right? We want to see you on the top step. And the problem you've got right now is there is maybe 1 or 2 teams, I'd say 1, these guys, who turn up with first or we've failed, right? Everybody else is like top 10, you know, that's fantastic. And I said, that mentality, and I give Roland credit for that, right? Even though Roland and I don't disagree. His mentality when he built that team of we win, we are here to win. We are not here to come top 10. He's drilled that into them. So it's the 1% has come from that mentality. And I've seen it. You know, I've spoken to Jamie. We bought a car and then sold it. So I've spoken to him. I see the level that they put into that. But yeah, when most of the teams are like, and drivers, right? It's acceptable. You know, and I know at Erebus, like, hey, we get a top 10. That's fantastic. And I'm like, no, we want to win.
I get when teams they try to set realistic expectations when in a building phase. I think it's as well, a lot of people like take the pressure off themselves. They say prior to a weekend, we want to be top 10. And I've had this in debriefs where it's actually got heated because I'm like, fuck, I'm sick of turning up expecting that. Like, let's go in and why aren't we going out and trying to, like, I love going out in the very first lap of practice and trying to be P1. Because it's like, it sets you up for the weekend. It's confidence boosting. Like I remember Shane last year made a mistake at the last corner at Bathurst and punched the steering wheel when he crossed the line on lap 1 of practice 1. And it is an ego thing, but I'm like, we should turn up with the expectation of trying to be at the top. And it's okay, I guess, in a building phase to start realistic. And then you need to build on that. But even if you can't
too long, get to number 1, like if you think you can, you know, there's a real chance you're going to get there. But if you start out already defeated, so even if you're a smaller team, right, and you don't have the same budget, you should be turning up with the mentality of like, I want to win this thing, right? Because that's how you win.
Yeah.
Winners have the mentality of I want to win. Name another sport. Name one sport to me where a top 10 finish is an acceptable achievement. It's not in AFL. You want to be the premier, right? It's not in NRL. It's not in NFL. It's not in... There's 12 races a year. Who remembers who came 6? You barely remember because it's every month, right? So I'm sitting back going, turn up with their mentality is I've got to win. And that's what Triple Eight do. And I think the rest of the teams, I do see a little bit of that coming out of Chaz and Ryan. And you're seeing them like, we want to win. We want to beat. We want to beat them. So you see a little bit. And I think it's one of the reasons why they're doing better.
I think we had that last year at Erebus. Like, to be honest, I'll look back on Erebus in the future.
Should I open a Coke right now?
I won't comment on that. But like, that was pretty cool days there. And I think between me and Brody, we wanted to beat each other so bad, but had such a good relationship there.
Did your expectation change throughout the year, though?
Yeah, definitely.
Actually, it would have been fast because you rolled out like...
We rolled out strong, but it was like... Just we wanted to beat each other and win, and there was so much in that team between me and Brody, and we were great teammates, but also in George Cummins, his engineer, and Tom mine, that I believe just us wanting to push each other so hard and win as well, and 2 hungry guys there push that team to what it was.
Definitely does.
But you're right. You had that mentality. We're here to win. They don't have it this year, right? And so that's why they're back down the back, right? Because they don't have Will and Brody, who are so driven to win. And you need that, but that's in business as well. If you don't have that mentality of, I've got to win, I've got to be the best, right? You're not going to be the best. And so that's one of the things I think that supercars really need to start pushing. But we need 10 888 teams up and down.
We do, yeah. It's definitely it's not easy is the one thing I would say, because my experience is now I can look back and say there's a number of individuals that could go into 888 tomorrow and be successful, but not on their own. And 888 is a powerhouse, but I think I've got a lot of respect for engineers that I've had, but they don't have the support network around them to actually perform. So even if they do have a high expectation, usually after a year or 2 or 3, they're just dead inside.
But isn't that the problem? I mean, let's be honest, right? That you need a $5, $6, $7, $8 million budget to get to the front. When we were looking at buying supercars, right? And I think one of the reasons why we didn't get it is because we were going to kill off Gen 3, right? I just felt that Gen 3 was a GT car. I remember looking at 888 and they had a Mercedes AMG car there that the Princes are driving, and that was like 700,000, and then you had the supercar next to it, right? And that was, I'm sitting back going, you do need to dumb them down, right? To make it easier and less expensive for other teams. It improves the entertainment. If you're a great driver, you're going to win because you're the fastest driver. So I think that Gen 3 really just was an extension of Gen 2, right? Where you still need to have a lot of money to make those cars go fast, right? And I'm not taking anything away from the drivers or the teams or the engineers, but I think you can level the playing field by dumbing those cars down. And I look at NASCAR, right? When you go to NASCAR, Will get in a car that is probably capable of winning, right? And there's probably 36 cars capable of winning up and down pit lane. And that's what we need to do here. And I think that's one of the misses with Gen 3.
What do you think to give you, actually I won't tell you what Cam said, but what do you think supercars could do? I mean, I enjoyed driving the Gen 3 car, but it's of course too expensive. I know even just the panels are ridiculous. And then I think it's become more an engineer's car than a driver's car. I think the separator is the team's. But what would you like to see change with the cars? Not so much supercars. I keep it driving specific. What do you think of the cars?
Yeah, I think I'm to be honest, I'm pretty positive of the cars because I think that I'm leading. I'm leading. But I also think
someone here is in 15th.
I also think you look at
Harry, don't touch a thing.
yeah, that's right. You look at 4th place to 15th place. Cam Waters was coming 15th in Perth, and he had a good weekend and came 4th. And I think that 5th or 4th place through to 15th has tightened up way more than other years.
We do have a good product. We still do have.
I think the product is quite good, and I actually think the racing is not too bad.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's good. Like, I went over and watched NASCAR for one race, and to be honest, I wouldn't say that NASCAR's whole... Like, I watched Brody's whole race at Indy, and there wasn't much passing at Indy, and I'm going... They've been telling me the whole time...
tyre deg there, loads of relocking because the things was too hot, and I did... Because I thought that...
By the way, I don't think that NASCAR wanted to be at that circuit. I don't think that was their choice. I think it was the combination of the both. But... a really good NASCAR race when you got 36 cars can be happening from 15th to 19th, right? Because there's so many cars. It can be happening from 25th to 30th. With us in supercars, you've really got 10 cars.
But is it worth having 36? Because this comes up a lot, especially when I'm live streaming. A lot of questions come in about wanting to see more cars on the grid. If you have more privateers or smaller teams like Super 2 coming up, they're not going to perform with the teams at the front.
They'll get in the way of the fast guys. They'll make it fun. I mean,
but you're going to end up with races under safety car and things more because of mistakes or mechanical failures or.
But look at Supercross, right? The best part of Supercross is when they're coming up to get the lap riders, right? What's going to happen here? He's going to slow him down. He's going to get in the way. No, you need more cars. I mean, the one thing I love about NASCAR is when you see 36 cars rolling around, it's pretty freaking cool. And there are going to be crashes and there are going to be action and excitement just because of the odds of the track and the size amount of cars. 24 is not enough. It's just simply not enough.
What about races? How many races are you doing this year now? Because you're doing GT as well.
My year's pretty crazy this year. I'll probably do 23 events this year.
Do you think supercars need to get closer to that number?
I think that supercars should be getting up towards 15 or more. I think that no matter what, we want to do more. And people say, that's why you're going to NASCAR. It's not the reason I'm going to NASCAR. I could be racing 30 times this year. I'm going to go do NASCAR. You tell a guy in NRL he can go do an NFL game, I'm pretty sure he's going to go do it.
Yeah.
So, that's not the reason. But we need to race more to put on a show for our fans more. Like, they've got to wait 3 weeks.
Do you know why you don't race more? Do you guys know why supercars
aren't they only paid to do 12 events, the teams?
They've got no money.
Yeah.
See, this is the thing that blows my mind, right? everyone's like, we need to do more races. It's like, yeah, but can't afford it, right? Because Supercars has to pay the teams and the teams have to get it. So I know they set up a committee right now. It's because the sport's not healthy.
How do we change that then?
You need to get more influx of more funds coming in. You need to get more fans coming in. I don't think for a second, if you ask Barclay, if he could run 15 or 20 profitable events, he would say no to it. I mean, he's a businessman, right? At the end of the day, he'd run 100 if he could, right? The thing is, it can't sustain more than 12 races today, right? The teams can't sustain it from a sponsorship perspective because the cars are too expensive, too expensive to operate, too expensive to repair. This is my point. You lower the costs across the board and you can run more races. TV's struggling, right? The ratings are struggling. I don't care what anybody says. You know, they get up there and they count these crowds, even at the Gold Coast, right? 200,000 people. It's the same crowd come 3 times, right? It would be like, we did the soccer, right, on the weekend, right? And I'm sitting back going, they had the biggest crowd ever, right? I'm going to say 30,000 or 32,000, whatever it was. If they came twice, we would be claiming 60,000. It's the same people. So from a sponsor's perspective, we didn't get any more customers, right? We just got the same customer coming back twice. So they would love, I don't think for a second that the teams and everybody else wouldn't love to do more races, right? The fans want it, everybody wants it. Financially, it doesn't work. And that's the fundamental problem that people need to look at and they need to fix. And until they fix that problem, we'll only have 12 races and 15 is going to be a stretch. It means the teams either take less money, right? To be able to turn up because Supercars can't afford any more. And that's why I sit back and go, you know, no one talks about the problem. The problem is that the sport financially can't sustain more than 12 races. It's not because we don't want them. It just can't sustain it. So how do you fix that problem?
There you go.
Know, Will?
No, I agree.
I love it. And that's what, that's why we have these conversations as well, because I was going to ask you what you thought about what race is doing and how it's going. But I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. We're all wishing as drivers, and what we want is quite a simplistic view because we just want to drive race cars, we want to drive cars we enjoy, and we want someone else to take care of that side of it, which is why we have to put our trust in Supercars that the sport is going to be sustainable and it's going to continue to grow, and then it gives us the ability to race more. Jace, your marketing manager here at Boost, mentioned something really I thought was a great thing off the pod. He said about Formula One didn't fix Formula One, but Netflix did, and I think that we could definitely take a leaf out of that book. I think Supercars could release some of the restraints on drivers, particularly with our socials and things like that, to help us grow and become more household names, giving us the ability to use some broadcast vision. I know that's a full renegotiation, but there's a load of different things I think Supercars could do to help the drivers and sponsors be able to leverage partnerships more as well and promote the sport. The
first thing they could do, to be totally honest with you, is this program that you put together, Scott, should be endorsed and embraced by Supercars, right? It frustrates me that you have to be this outlier, right? And that Supercars doesn't have anything like this, right? Because,
Well, no. I tried and the door was... It was not...
but that's a mistake. And so what they want is they wanted a scripted event, but then they want the people to actually feel that they're authentic. Everybody knows you're not authentic, right? I came out, I was fairly critical on Scaife, right? When it came to his commentary, right? Because it's boring as batshit, right? And I sat back and I got so many fans commenting and going, you're right. And these types of programs, right? If Supercars embraced it, allowed the freedom and flexibility, you're a Supercar driver still, right? You know the sport, you understand the sport, you're passionate about the sport. You're not here just to be angry. No, right? You're not here because you somehow feel that the sport did you wrong and you want to pay them back. That's not why any of us are here. Well, I mean, Will's still young at it, but that's not why you and I are here. And so the fact that Supercars doesn't embrace these types of podcasts, the fact that this is not on KO and it's not on Foxtel is mind-blowing to me, when it could just be basically on there. They've got stuff up on their program which is just mind-dumbing, right? You just sit back and go, why is that up there? This should be up on KO. This should be on Foxtel. This is what engages fans, not just the fans of the sport, but other people who are just flicking through, looking for the AFL game. Well, what's this thing? And that's what frustrates me, is the media don't do a great job. So the media partners they have, Foxtel, KO, and Seven don't do a great job of promoting the sport because there's no money in it for them. And then when you sit back and these programs, basically you got to find them, you got to discover them, right? And fans are discovering your program. But the fact that Supercars don't embrace these types of programs just is one of the biggest issues I have with it.
Yeah, no, it is tough. And honestly, my perspective and everything on the sport is certainly not one from a negative perspective, because I actually am very grateful. I raced in Europe and I tried to make that European dream happen and it didn't. But thank God Supercars existed, because I've had such a great enjoyable career and something that my dad would have been so proud of. And I don't want it to ever not be there for the next generation of driver as well. So it's not only just from a fan's perspective I want to make it better, but I want to make sure that we have a national sport here that's renowned all around the world as having some of the best drivers, that the next generation can come into and earn a salary. Because if Supercars is gone or it's in a bad spot financially, you're going to have drivers that dry up and disappear, because going to Europe or going to America is not easy. And we are very, very lucky to have a championship here in Australia that can pay our drivers to race cars.
I do want to put this on the record that a Supercars race, when they're going on fire, when these guys are racing, there's no better racing in the world. I don't care where you go, Formula One, NASCAR. When a supercar puts on a real race, and it's a great race, and they're allowed to race, and Craig's not going after them every time they bump somebody. When that race really happens, there's no better sport in the world. That's why I love it. I don't love it because it's boring.
Yeah.
And sometimes you see these races, right, where you go, oh my God, that's what I fell in love with.
Yeah.
There's just not enough of them, right? And that's what I'm saying. Have more of them, get them closer, get them racing, because these guys can race, right? And as I said, there's no better spectacle in my mind in the world. And I sponsor a lot of sports.
I think going back on your Craig comment as well, you're going to ask me what I would change with the category, and I think Craig actually does a really good job for the rule book he gets given. He gets given a rule book, but my biggest thing is that if I'd change one thing in the category, it'd probably be the rule book in a way. Like, we've all gotten a bit soft with the racing as well. It's like I did that professional foul last year.
Shane's
professional foul.
Shane, when he was racing in Texas, he goes, I wasn't used to it. You can bang somebody and push them out.
So you reckon let us settle on track?
Well, I feel like it's like last year. I saw Pete after Sydney here when I did that, tap the brake and had a whinge about Shane, and Pete was paying me out. I was having a laugh about it. I was like, you know what? I did do a professional foul. I knew that, I'm just going to let him go here because he's going to get a 5-second penalty. That's what the rule book is. If that wasn't the rule book, it was on the last lap, I would have just taken him out next corner. I would have gone, okay, righto, I'm going to settle it myself here.
Yep.
But the drama is, Craig does a really good job with what he's given. It's like with Randall on the weekend.
Anyone listening, this is Beardo you're talking
about.
Yeah,
I think he does. I think I've enjoyed working with Beardo over the time. I think he does a good job. Yeah. But he's given a rule book. It's like on the weekend with Randall. He moved across at the bowl, and I knew he did. And I went down the back straight, and I've got the onboard. He moves hard right, and I go, you know what? He moved over at the bowl. I'm going to brake as deep as I can, as straight as I can. And if he moves over, I can tip him off. Yeah. And he moved over. I stayed fully to the left. He moved over, and went off. Yeah. And ultimately,
Randall played to the rule book in as well, though, like by tapping the brake and acknowledging.
Yeah, he did that as well.
There's two things that need to happen. They need to disconnect whatever connection that the teams have to Craig during the race, so they cannot talk to him. So he should be in his own isolated box, and he should be given the ability to make the rule based on the environment that's happening there. And I agree with you 100%.
I think if you loosen it up, though, if I go on lap 3 and take Chaz or Cam out, I'm going to go, I know this is coming back. Like, one of those guys I know, or next race, I'm going to cop it. So I'm not going to push them off unless it's for a big win or something like that, So I feel like it'd be self-policing for a few rounds. A few people would punt people off and then cop it back twice as bad. And they're going, I'm not going to take that person out, but it would produce good racing. So
I reckon that's going to be the biggest shock to you in NASCAR.
Yeah.
You're going to be bash and bang. You'll be going, where's Beardo?
Yeah.
That guy's
is that 5 seconds?
I reckon.
That's right.
Spot on with that rule book, because Beardo, he's doing a good job.
He's doing a great job.
He's been around for a long time now, which shows whatever he's doing is working. But I definitely reckon, you're right, NASCAR, I'd love to see us settle some scores on track. I don't agree with the offloading someone with a lap to go, though.
No, I don't agree.
Where you don't have an opportunity to. It's almost like they need like a 10 lap. Once there's 10 laps to go, you can't do it because there's no time for someone to get you back. I think you've got to be able to.
I think to Will's point, you offload me in that race,
they'll get you next time.
You're going to get you next time. So people do know that, right? And so that's why you don't see a lot of them. The offloads are basically just people that are angry, like lose it. But we're a sport of entertainment, right? It's an entertainment. It's about entertaining the fans. Just hearing Will then explain what was going on with Randall in that, I watched it, right?
Yeah.
I had no idea that's what he was thinking.
No, but
the fact that I've heard that he's thinking that now has made the whole thing.
I was thinking the rule book straight away because I pulled hard left straight away and let him go to the right as much as I could because he did it to me that bowl. I'm like, you're going to do it again. And
So Will's racing and being a lawyer at the same time.
Definitely smart.
He shouldn't be. He
shouldn't give you enough credit.
He should be. No, I was actually quite impressed that you were okay. I'm going to do this, but
I'm not sure if that's bullshit though to make him sound good.
no, I swear on everything I own that was exactly what I was thinking coming out of the bowl.
I know a lot of drivers. Will doesn't bullshit. He tells the truth.
Well, I do want to. Erebus obviously had amazing success last year, and you mentioned briefly. I was going to bring it up then, but we kind of got away with some good stuff, so I wanted to keep going. But your relationship with Brodie was, I think, even Barry was very public about how good that was, and you guys drove the team forward and everything. Do you think, with you departing the team and heading over to Red Bull, do you think that caused some of the issues there where Brodie maybe didn't have the support of, because even though you're competing on track, it sounds like you had a good relationship and there were some things going on behind the scenes that weren't great. Do you think maybe
I'm sure
Brodie not having you around as a teammate made his decision harder to stick around?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it would have played on his mind, to be honest. We work so well together there and we're still great mates and we push that team. Like Brodie did a fantastic job last year to even lift the team. His expectation to how his car had to arrive at the track was high. Like, higher than mine even. Like if it showed up with dirt on it or anything like that, he's like, you didn't look at that spot.
Yeah.
You have to lift your level of that because if it's showing up dirty, you haven't cleaned it, you haven't checked there. So I had a lot of respect for him from that way and the team had a lot of respect for him as well. Like he didn't go about it in a bad way, but he let him know the standard that he expected. And that made me better in some ways. I probably dumbed him down in some ways. He was probably a bit angrier when we first became teammates, and I probably pulled him back a bit there, and we got along well. And he probably boosted me up in certain areas. So I feel like
I got that impression in Adelaide with Brodie at the drivers' lunch, and just through conversation, he's very proud and takes it very personally when things aren't done right. He'll hold someone accountable when he doesn't think
100%.
things are being done right. So I actually had a lot of respect after Adelaide because it was cool. We did the drivers' lunch and we all got to hang out. And actually, we've never even done a drivers' lunch before, and that was really good. And I did get a perspective on Brodie that I probably didn't have before, where he's not afraid to hold someone accountable if he thinks it's wrong. But now, Pete, you obviously had an amazing relationship. And from me personally, Elliot, who's not here tonight, but is my co-host on the pod, we've been chatting about this for so long about what we've both had supporters in our careers that have backed us for a long period of time. And I don't know what it would take for me to upset them because I know, like, I just could not have done half of what I've done without their support. So how did that phone conversation go with Brodie? I mean, how was it? Because it's definitely that wouldn't have been, regardless of how it went, I'm sure it wasn't an easy call for Brodie. But there would have been some real frustration there from your end. Yeah,
I remember the call because it was in California. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I saw the call come in from Brodie, and I took it, and I basically was upbeat, right? Because every time I talked to Brodie, we've been checking in to see how he was going because he was having a pretty hard time. He's a racer and he wanted to race, and I said, Brodie, how's it going? We're still trying to put you in a Nascar. We're still trying to do this. He goes, I've got to tell you something. And I said, what's that? He goes, I'm going back to Erebus. And I'm like, well, have you made that decision permanent? He goes, yeah, I've made that decision. Paul and Morris and I went down, we met with them. And he said, and it gets worse, Peter, because they've told me I have to take the sticker, my boost sticker off the helmet. And to credit to Brodie's a racer, right? And I think he got really bad advice. I'll be totally honest with you. And I think Paul gave him.
Do you think it was just get your bum back in a seat?
Yeah, I think it was, you're a racer, people are missing you, you need to get back in your seat. And so I think Brodie got really bad advice. Yeah. And so what I said, Brodie, what you're basically doing is anybody who was associated with him, right? So, Steve and Earl and everybody else were off the helmet. You could not sponsor. Betty had made it clear that we had basically, we caused the problem, which we hadn't. The funny thing is I didn't even know Brodie was leaving the team until I read it in Speed Cafe. Everyone seems to think that Brodie and I were chatting. Right. I hadn't thought about Erebus for over 2 years since we had left them, right? And so I said, Brodie, what are you doing? I said, why wouldn't you at least call us, supporters, and just at least talk us through? I said, I think you're making a massive career mistake. And then he turned around and he said, well, they said I can't run the helmet. And I said, well, Brodie, that makes no sense after all the support we've given you. And so I put it down to, I'm going to give Brodie the credit, the benefit of the doubt here. I think he got poor advice, really bad advice. And I think because he's such a hardcore racer, I've never met anybody who races so hard and is so focused on racing that everything else, and I don't think he had good people around him. So I think to give Brodie the credit I think he deserves, he's a good guy. Like
we've now got the power of hindsight, and obviously it hasn't turned out to be, in my opinion, the best decision, mainly based off where the team is at right now, because Brodie's stocks at the end of last year could not have been higher. And 12 months on the sideline, regardless of why it was, and this is why I don't understand the situation, and I don't know why it's played out the way it has, but had he come back next year, he would have been at the top of the tree with fantastic supporters and backers. And then, I think this year as a racer, and what I would say is, even to you, Will, I think some of my experience has been just driving a car because we love it may not always be the best decision, because you still got to think about your stocks, like your CV is still important at the end of the day. And if you can't get in a competitive car, and things, regardless of if he thought it was or wasn't, things weren't what they were at the end of last year. And I think it's going to be tough for him to get that kind of success he had last year. But I think it's important to take opportunities when they're the right ones.
Brodie had north of $2 million worth of sponsors that would put him in anything he wanted to race, right? And so it wasn't just upsetting, us.
But I mean, just taking an opportunity today may not be the best one for tomorrow.
No, but that was it. So I thought him sitting out the season, going and doing some things was going to be the right decision that he'd made. I agree with you. I actually rang Paul. As soon as Brodie told me that this is what was going on, I rang Paul Morris, because Paul was obviously instrumental, as Roland said, and I know that Paul was instrumental. I rang Paul and I said, "You just killed the guy's career." "Oh, well, no, the guy's a racer. He needs the race." And I'm like, the problem with Norwell, right, is it's got this halo effect, right, of Paul going up there and basically building all these drivers on other people's money, right? And this is the part that frustrates me. Paul doesn't put his own hand in his own pocket, right? We do that. We did it for Brock Feeney, right? We did it for Brodie, right, as we're going out there, and we were starting to do it for Kai, and we're still doing it for Kai as well. We love the young drivers as they come through, and we want to support them. We want to be loyal to them. But there's no loyalty built there, right? And so what happened was, it was like, don't worry, it'll all be fine. You got to just get in the car and race the car. And that's not just about racing the car. And I think this is the value that maybe this is the lesson that Brodie's going to learn, that it is more than just racing a car, right? And he thought it was that. And that's what he's been told by Paul, because that's how Paul thinks, right? Paul thinks you're a race car driver. You go race the car. That's what you do. You do that job and everything else will happen. It's not how it works today. So I think Brodie upset. And to me, I was more disappointed than angry, right? And, here's the funny thing. So I tell Paul, I say, "Paul, we're done, right?" I said, "I'm not going to do anything." I said, "The fact that Barry has made him take it." And so Paul says to me, "Don't worry, I'll fix it." I said, "Well, you're going to fix it, mate." So he rings me back about 10 minutes later. He says, "All right, I think we can work with Barry. We can put your sticker back on Brodie's helmet." I said, "Fuck you." I said, "You don't dump us, right? Not like it's some girlfriend where you dump and then you finally find out that you might have upset her and you bring her back." I said, "No, we don't want anything to do with that team, and we don't want anything to do with Brodie, right? Because what he's done to us isn't fair." And nobody knows the amount of support that we gave Brodie behind the scenes, right? Emotionally and offered financially, right, to help him. So it wasn't just that he was ripping the sticker off. He was kind of ripping off the friendship. And that's why I don't think that Brodie, given his time again, would have made the same decision. I think he would have stayed the course. And that's why I don't really hold a grudge against Brodie.
But time again still made the same.
I hold a grudge against the people around him, right?
Do you think Brodie would make the same initial decision?
No, I don't think. I don't think he'd make the same initial decision. I think he'd just ride out the year and go, "This is fucked," because last year wasn't that much fun for him. Let's be honest.
Yep.
It's not like last year was like high-fiving each other when he went into the pits. I was told for the last 6 months he didn't even speak to Barry, right? So it wasn't like a harmonious relationship. He should have sat it out for the year, either raced it or sat it out for the year. But I think given hindsight, I think he's learned a valuable lesson. I hope he can come back from it. The guy's way too talented. And, he's a good friend. Like, this is the one thing I loved about Brodie. When I bring my family to the racetrack, he was the only guy, other than Will, who would come up and say hello to my dad or say hello to my kids, right? He was that guy, right? And that's why it was even more disappointing to me to see him do this. And I think he got bad advice. I think he needs to get good people around him. And I think because Paul's just a tunnel vision guy, right? Race. Everyone's forgotten about you. Get back in the car. And I think that Paul's taken his career back. And I think the only way that Brodie can come out of this is he needs to get his career back himself. He needs to control himself, get himself back to where he was. And I think that's where you'll see the best of Brodie. But we're not going to see the best of Brodie until he mentally gets himself there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, regardless of everything career-wise, hopefully, because like I said earlier, I've got one person in particular who's a very close friend of mine, and God forbid anything did happen in that relationship, I would hope that it can be resolved. So I do hope that Brodie can.
Well, just so you know, I am
still
absolutely open. If Brodie picked up the phone,
I hope it does.
If he picked up the phone to me tomorrow and said, "Pete, I want to come and have lunch with you," I'd take the lunch in 30 seconds.
Good. Yeah,
I think he's still at the standard, though, to be honest. I think he can still win races right now.
Definitely.
Like, I don't think he's...
he was coming up on you at Perth. I was watching.
Yeah, like, I think New Zealand, what he did there, I think that they need to step up as a group after what has happened. Like, as in, Brodie can't just get him back to here just by him coming back. You know what I mean? Can't be expected that, Brodie's back, we're going to win. A lot's happened there. And I think... He's qualifying at New Zealand in the shootout. He came out 8th.
I know, but here's the last year's reigning champion, who's running around and no one's talking about him. I mean,
that's what I meant by his stops.
This is a guy who should be doing a victory lap. This is the guy who everybody should be chasing, right?
Yeah.
And no one's chasing him, right?
Yeah.
And I know you're saying that he was doing well. I mean, and because Brodie hasn't forgotten how to drive. The guy's an incredible driver. But he's one of those guys, like anyone in business, right? In any sport, when you've got momentum and you've got positive attitude, that gives you the extra mile to go faster, or that gives you an extra mile to succeed in business. But he doesn't have that now.
There's a lot of emphasis on teams in our sport, unfortunately. And I think that it doesn't matter how good you are, if you don't have the right people around you and everything, it's going to be a tough road ahead.
Yep. And I think Brodie gets the right people around him.
Yep.
Again, I also believe that Paul's intent was good. I just think it was poorly executed.
Yeah, I definitely don't think Paul would have done anything.
No, he wasn't trying to hurt him.
Yeah, no, Paul definitely.
No.
They're close friends as well. Their relationship, I'm sure, is very close. But before we do wrap it up, Will, what's your plans now? You're heading off to this pod again. I do the editing, so it's probably not going to come out ahead of your race weekend this weekend. Where are you off to now? What are you doing next?
So I'm actually going to Adelaide tomorrow to race in GT. I feel like I'm Kyle Larson. So I'm racing in GT this weekend, and then I've got
the private jet.
No, I've got the jet sitting there.
Oh, you got the jet.
So this is what I'm talking about. So I'm racing GT this weekend. Got the jet sitting at Murray Bridge thanks to Pilatus here. Seb's an awesome guy. So I couldn't make my flight out of Melbourne to get to the US in time if I didn't fly privately. So I was thinking, how do I do it? My plane's out of action. Rang Seb from Pilatus, awesome guy. And he said, we'll have the jet sitting there at 4:00 on Sunday afternoon. So I'm straight from the track into Melbourne Airport.
Amazing.
Out to US. So it's pretty cool, but my weeks have been crazy. I went from going to the US straight back to going to Perth, then to Queenstown. Now I'm going back to Adelaide, then back to USA to Darwin.
This is what I'm saying.
Old, mate. I do that, all that, mate. I'm over 50.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell me about that.
Living a dream here, and all thanks to a number of partners and Mobile X. And then as soon as you're back, your Darwin is the following weekend.
So yeah, that's right. I'm flying back in. I'm leaving Sunday night straight after Sonoma. There's an 11:30 flight out of there, and land back into Brisbane Tuesday. Do pre-brief, and then I'm going straight to Darwin that afternoon to get ready for the event.
I'm not far off my call up. I feel like
that's right.
coming around real fast.
You're flying into Brisbane, right?
Flying into Brisbane, yeah. Not private, okay.
No. If you are, I want my sticker back on.
Yeah.
No, I mean, mate, good luck. It's been an amazing year so far. I'm sure you're putting the heat on Brock now. I've seen all the press. I don't want to ask about that because I'm sure there's enough inter-team rivalry going there. But I think, you said with Brodie, it's important to have a teammate that pushes you, and I think you and Brock are going to do that.
Yep.
Hopefully it's a 1-2 for Rebel Empire Racing at Bathurst and Sandown. But it just has to be 87, please. I said earlier.
No conflict there, is there?
No, of course not.
At all. No. Like you're cheering yourself on.
Like his intro, though. I said 8th at Bathurst. Come on, dude. There's some rookie
terrible
numbers.
run. We've got to change
You
that.
were second with us when we were on your car.
Second twice, mate.
Second twice.
Two in a row with Boost on the side of the car. But
first loser.
Very excited to be partnering you at Bathurst. Thanks again as well, Pete. It's been an amazing chat. I'm sorry we have ran over. I've got loads of questions I could keep talking about and asking you, but appreciate your time, guys. Thanks very much for coming on.
Perfect.
Cheers, thank you. No, I think that was a bit of fun, actually.
Mate, I gave the Supercar guys a fucking serve. Make sure you play that.
I will.